Today I'm going to bring you another basic guide. This will be the Summoner and the Scholar guide. I'm going to throw both of them together as they share the same class of Arcanist. Again, I'd like to thank anyone who's seen my other guides, and if you enjoyed my other guides, I hope you'll enjoy this one as well. If you're not playing Final Fantasy XIV, but you're thinking about it, and you're trying to find what kind of class you would enjoy, this could be a good guide for you as well, as also teaching you just some basics about each of these two classes. Now, if you've played Final Fantasy XIV, you're aware of that a Summoner's DPS and Scholar's is a healer. So, we're going to start with our Summoner first. Honestly, I love a Summoner. They are probably one of the most perfect casting classes because they can do so much damage, yet they don't take aggro due to the way their mechanics work. They're also the only class that back in 2.0 could actually solo dungeons if you had 4 of them, and it was actually pretty fun to do. A party of 4 summoners with their Titan eggies out. It's really fun to go out there and just clear stuff. Now, Summoner. A Summoner is a DPS class that can not only DPS, but they can heal, tank, and res. They're almost like a watered down version of the Druid in WoW, as they're not completely OP. So let's first start with a Summoner's stats. As a Summoner, your basic stats are going to be Intelligence. The only problem with a Summoner is that you also have to choose Scholar. They share the same class. Now, I main Scholar more than Summoner, so I put my points into Mind. But if I want to switch my points, say I'm going to play my Summoner, I'll just use an item that I bought a lot for purely for my Summoner. So on your Summoner, your main stat is Intelligence. It's where you should pop. If you're going to summon, it's where you should pop all of your stat points in too. Okay, there we go. This increases your total attack power, well, attack magic potency, and makes you do, of course, 2 more damage. A Summoner's DPS is kind of a 2-part DPS. The first part is your main attacks, which are your DOTs. Now, my DOTs are over here. You have 4 DOT abilities, however, you're probably only going to really use 3 of them, as Miasma 2 has no real potency. It can be good in major groups, but it requires more movement and probably a DPS loss than just ignoring it in general. So let's start by looking at our abilities, our actions. Your first action is Rune. This deals unaspected damage with a potency of 80. In other words, the way I always think about it, it's not exact, but like it's 80%. It's about 80% of what a normal attack will do. Next, we have Bio. Bio has a potency of 40 and lasts for 18 seconds. Now, for those who don't know DOTs, the way they work is every 3 seconds is a tick. So in other words, to find out the full potency of this, you have to take that 18 seconds, divide it by 3, and then multiply that by 40. That gives us a base potency of 240. The other DOT, or the second one, is Miasma. Miasma has a potency of 35, but lasts for 24 seconds. So again, take 24, divide that by 3, and multiply that by 35, giving that a potency of 280. This also, for PvP wise, causes heavy and reduces the ability to recover by healing magic by 20%, helping dramatically in PvP. Our last main DOT is Bio 2, which has a potency of 35 and lasts 30 seconds, giving us a base potency of 350. Now real quick, before we move on, something about DOTs and your stats. They made a change in the patches back that spell speed now affects your DOTs. So in other words, while my base potency might be 240 or 250 or 350, it will actually become higher because of my spell speed. So definitely a secondary stat you're probably going to want to stack is going to be spell speed, just for that increase. And the more spell speed you have, the better. So let's go and take a look at the rest of our abilities. Now the second set of abilities that are very important to a summoner is the Aetherflow abilities. So Aetherflow restores 20% of your maximum HP and it grants you stacks of Aetherflow. Now at level 1 you get 1 stack, level 20 you get 2 stacks, and at level 40 you get all 3 stacks. What Aetherflow does is it grants abilities that we can use, more advanced abilities. The first one being Bane, which spreads all your DOTs to enemies nearby. However, the 4th enemy and beyond, the potency is halved. So it does half damage to those ones. Bane also has a 15% chance to reset the duration of your Bio 2 and Miasma, which is actually really nice if that happens, if it's below the original cast time. I mean the original duration. Our next one we have is actually going to be in our job, and that is Fester. Now Fester has a potency of 100 for each DOT you have there. So in other words, it has a total potency of 300 if you have all 3 dots on. It also costs 1 of your Aetherflows. The last ability we're going to look at right now that has to do with Aetherflow is Energy Drain. Energy Drain deals unaspected damage with a potency of 150, absorbs 50% of the damage as HP, and restores magic points. So, as a summoner or a scholar, since both have these abilities, you have a 20% HP regen right there, and then you have 3 stacks of this. You should never run out of magic points ever on your summoner or scholar. So now we're going to take a look at some of the other abilities we have. First we have Rune. Wait, we already looked at Rune, sorry. First we have Summon. This is the first pet you're going to get, and it's going to originally be a Carbuncle. This is your DPS, casting DPS type, so it's a caster type. Next we're going to have Physic. This is a healing, it has a cure percentage of 400. It's not going to heal a lot on your summoner, it's more for your scholar, but it does give your summoner the ability to heal should you need to do that in solo combat. Next we have Virus. Reduces target strength, dex, intelligence, and mind by 15% and lasts 10 seconds. In other words, it reduces any enemy's attack power by 15%. Very useful, but they changed it so now it has the enemy has a 1 minute immunity after it falls off. Now this is a cross-class skill for Black Mage, so if you use it on Black Mage or White Mage or Astrology, and you realize that it does not get the intelligence or the mind. That's because the base form is only strength and dex. Next we have Summon 2. This is a tank type Carbuncle, and this is actually going to be the summon you have out usually when you're doing solo play, as it allows you to have your tank and you don't have to worry about them hitting you. Sustain. This is your heal for your pet. It restores 8% of a summon's HP and lasts for 10 seconds. Now again, being as usually you have to kind of tick as usually every 3 seconds, that should heal for about I think maybe 20-30% of their HP. However, I think due to the awkward time, I think this one actually heals every second. So if we take a look at that and we cast our Sustain, we might be able to see just how it works. Sustain, I'm not really fully sure, as it does not come in that increment of 3 seconds. It might actually go every second, in which it would be an 80% heal. Okay, let's move on. Next, Resurrection. This is actually as a summoner, you are the only DPS that actually has the ability to resurrect. This resurrection can also be done in combat, meaning that it's very important that as a summoner you look, if a healer's dead, you res. Stop DPSing for a second and res what needs to get resed if the healers can't. Especially if you have a White Mage and an Astrologian who do not have the ability to regen magic points as well as you do. Next we have Eye for an Eye. This erects a magical barrier around a single party member or pet. Has a 20% chance that when the barrier is struck, the striker will do 10% less damage. So in other words, it lasts for 30 seconds, and if you get hit, you have that 20% chance for 20 seconds that they'll take less damage. Rune 2. This has the same potency as Rune 1, but it costs quite a bit more than your Rune 1 spell, as you can see. The difference is this does not have a cast time, and it can blind. So this can be useful if you need to move and cast at the time, but for the most part, you're not going to use this ability. You'll pretty much use it until you get to level 54, and then I've taken it off my bar. Next we have Rouse. Rouse increases your HP restoration and the damage dealt by pet by 40%. In other words, making them 40% stronger if they're a healer or a DPS. They also are immune to stun, sleep, bind, heavy paralysis, and disease. So it's a very good ability to use, and it lasts 20 seconds, has a 1-minute cooldown. Next we have Miasma 2. Again, this deals unaspected potency of a 20 to all nearby enemies. Then it does 10% over time, lasts 15 seconds, meaning it does about a total of 70 potency total. The reason you would never really use this is due to the fact that, I'll show you first of all, it casts around yourself. It doesn't cast around the enemy, which means you technically have to run into the group, cast it, run back, and then start casting your spells. The movements that you have to take there already make you have a loss in DPS. Last we have Shadow Flare. Now this is a scholar's only AoE attack they have, other than Bane. This actually puts down an AoE dot that lasts for 30 seconds and has a potency of 25. In other words, it's a total of 250 potency. The nice thing about this is you can keep this down while healing, while DPSing, while doing anything you're doing on either a scholar or a summoner. Okay. So they got some pretty cool abilities, pretty nice ones. Let's go and take a look at our job abilities. This is where it gets really, a summoner gets really interesting and really fun. At level 30, you'll get your Summon 3. Summon 3 is your Ifrit Eggy. Now, Ifrit is going to be your melee type character. He's gonna be good up until endgame. Ifrit has a couple of really cool abilities though. If we go and take a look at our abilities, you'll see that Ifrit has Crimson Cyclone, which is his regular attack. Crimson Cyclone, which is his stun, allowing you to stun enemies as a summoner. Burning Strike is his regular attack. Radiant Shield actually puts on a countering shield where every time you get attacked, you do 50 potency back. And this actually goes party wide. And then we have Flaming Crush, which is his AoE. And then you have Inferno, which is his ultimate attack. This is kind of like his limit break. Each of your pets get their own little limit break type attack. At 35, you'll get a skill called Fester. Fester is, we already got it through once, pretty much does 100 potency per your 3 main DOTs you have on. Next, you have a skill called Tribind. This is absolutely useless in endgame. Only useful when you're soloing combat and you just want to get away from something. And it pretty much just binds. It's an AoE bind. So say you get like 3 or 4 things on you and you just want to get away, cast that and you can get away. Other than that, it's useless. It does no damage. Only 30 potency. It's really weak. And costs way too much MP. Next we have Spur. This is going to be your level 45. This increases your pet's physical and magical attack power by 40%. Combine that with Rouse, you get an 80% increase in your attack on your pet. Now, at level 40 and 45, you'll also be getting your next 2 summons. That is going to be your Titan Eggy, which replaces your Topaz Carbuncle. This obviously is your tank. Now, whenever you're playing with your tank, you're probably always going to want your tank on sick, meaning he's going to be on automatic. He's just going to do his own stuff. Because it's going to be really hard to try and manually tank plus DPS. The only time I've ever put Titan on auto is when I had to actually physically tank in a dungeon because our tank left. In which I put him on auto, that way I could focus on his abilities and his defensive buffs. Other than that, if I ever use Titan, it's solo combat and he's always on auto so that I can just focus on DPSing. At level 45, I believe, we'll get Garuda, which is our casting summon. This is going to be the summon you will use in endgame content for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that she is a ranged class, meaning that she doesn't have to be up in there, she's not going to get hit by DOTs. And a nice little trick you can do with her is you can actually move her about so that she's out of the way of other targets. So for example, in Titan Extreme and Titan Hard mode, what you could do with her is you could put her right on the edge of the arena, and then as soon as Titan did that smash, she would actually be technically off the arena, meaning she couldn't be hit, but she'd still be attacking. That's also what scholars do with their fairies. So that's one reason that makes her really good, is the ability you can control her a little better. The second reason is she's got a really good ability called Contagion, which we will go over in a second. So let's take a look at Garuda's skills. Her first is Windblade, that's her normal attack. Shockwave is similar to Ifrit's Stun, the only difference is this is a knockback move. So it's kind of one you don't want to use all the time, you got to be really controlled with it, because nothing's more annoying than knocking back a target when your melee DPS need to hit it. Aerial Slash is its AoE attack, and then Contagion is what makes Garuda so much better. Now they did nerf this ability. Originally it doubled the times of your DOTs, now this increases them by 15 seconds. But that's 5 more ticks, meaning that your bio will now do 200 more potency. Your bio 2 will do less, in bio 2 in Miasma will do a little less than 200 potency. So they would do 35 times 5, they do about 175 more potency, meaning that you're getting an extra, in total, 550 potency from that ability. So now that we've gone over our pets, we're going to go and take a look at the rest of our job skills. Your level 50 skills in Kindle. This is pretty much what allows your pet to do their signature move, their limit break. For example, Ifrit has his Inferno, Garuda has Aerial Blast, and Titan has Earth and Fury. It's on a 3-minute cooldown, but it does a lot of damage, and it's AoE, so it's really good to use in mass mobs. Next we have Pain Flare. Now Pain Flare is where their summoner is going to start to become extremely bursty. Pain Flare requires a stack of Aetherflow, but it does a total of 200 potency to targets all around whatever you targeted. It's very powerful, it has a 10-second cooldown, and it will be an important part of your rotation in endgame mob pools. Next we have Rune 3. When you get Rune 3, this will replace Rune 2. However, you will not be using Rune 3 due to its MP cost at this point. You will still be using Rune 1. The next skill is Tri-Disaster. Tri-Disaster is what we used to have, but they changed it to Tri-Bind. What Tri-Disaster does is it inflicts targets with all 3 of your DOTs at one time. Very useful, very important. It's on a 1-minute cooldown. You're going to be using this move. Dreadworm Trance. Now every time we use a stack of Aetherflow, we gain what's called a stack of Aetherial Attunement. When we have 3 stacks of Aetherial Attunement, we can activate Dreadworm Trance, which lasts 15 seconds. It increases the magic damage dealt by 10% and lowers the MP cost of Rune by a lot. This is when we'll be using Rune 3. So in Dreadworm Trance, you will then start to use Rune 3. At level 60, we will get what's called Death Flare, which deals a potency of 400 to all targets nearby it, and can only be used when you are in Dreadworm Trance. However, as soon as you use Death Flare, you lose Dreadworm Trance completely. So it's more going to be the ending of your Dreadworm Trance. The last thing we're going to look at skills, we're going to look at our cross classes. The first cross class you're going to want is Swift Cast. Very important. This allows you to do your immediate castings of raises or whatever spell you want to immediately cast. You're going to tend to save it for raise. Next, Raging Strikes, which gives us a 20% increase in damage dealt. This is not physical, this is pure damage, so it will increase a summoner's damage. The next skill, the third skill, that all casting classes need to have is Coiling Strikes. I'll be doing a Black Mage video later, but Black Mage definitely needs to have Coiling Strikes. The downside to Coiling Strikes is it requires a level 35 Archer, which is not fun to farm. The rest of the cross-class skills are really up to you. Hawkeye increases your dex by 50%, which is useless. However, it guarantees that all attacks hit land, so if you have an accuracy issue, but you should really not use it. And on Thaumaturge, you just have Blizzard 2 and Surecast. Blizzard 2 gives you another AoE attack, so if you have AoE and you want to run there and just cast Blizzard 2 to do a little more damage, it helps with that. And Surecast just helps you not to get interrupted. Now that we've gone over the class stats and we've gone over our abilities, we're going to go over I'm going to go over my basic rotation on a summoner. Now the first thing I do is I always put my pets on manual. I always put them on obey. I do not want my pets on automatic, as I want to be able to control their abilities. For example, I don't want to cast DOTs and have two of my DOTs cast and then have Greedio's Contagion when I don't have my third one on. That's a waste of damage. So my normal solo attacks, my normal solo combo is going to usually be activating all three DOTs, using Fester, and then just using Rune, and then when Fester's off cooldown, casting Fester again, Rune, Fester. I might throw Contagion right after my first cast, but before I do that, I would definitely make sure I have activated Raging Strikes to get that extra 20% damage. So we're just going to do a quick show of that real quick, of what it would look like. So the first thing I do would be activating Coiling and Raging. Then I'd activate all three of my DOTs. Activate Fester. Cast my Ruin. Now my DOTs have at least 20 seconds, meaning I should be able to get them off in time. Fester again. We'll be casting my AoEs one more time. We'll let them go off for a bit. At this point in time, I'm going to be entering Dreadroom stance. I'm going to be switching to Rune 3. As you can tell, Rune 3 is now less than 1,000, now only 176, decreasing it by quite dramatically. And as soon as my last DOT ticks, I'm going to activate Tri-Disaster, increasing the total damage. Now it goes back and switch again. As soon as my Aetherflow goes back off, I will reset it and go again. Now one thing I forgot to do, because I was explaining the move, was I forgot to activate my Death Flare. So let's go ahead and start this up again. Go and activate that, cast my Fester, do my DOT, go ahead and set to go, let my DOTs fall off. Get Management 2 back on there, Bio back on there, cast Contagion, Fester. Tri-Disaster has about 17 seconds left, so I'll have to cast one more Bio, but it will be ready by then. Okay, there's that. I'm going to go ahead and cast Aetherflow Entombment, get my Bio back up there. Just switch to Rune 3. And cast about one more. And Death Flare. So that's going to be about your basic, that's my basic rotation usually. I found that rotation is quite a bit. Now again, I don't main this class, so I'm sure someone who mains Summoner is going to have a much better rotation than me. I do find it works, it keeps my DOTs on, it allows me to do as much damage as possible. So that's usually my single target rotation. Now when I go to an AoE rotation, the slight changes I'm going to make are, I first will have casted all my DOTs, would have then casted Contagion, and then instead of casting Fester, I'll cast Bane, and then I'll do Pain Flare. And then as soon as Pain Flare's back up again, I'll use Pain Flare again. So I'll show you that rotation again, just to show you how it would be if I was AoEing. Go and bring Rune back over here. So, and target a target. Start by getting my buffs up. Cast my DOTs up. Wait for Bio 2 to go. Contagion. And I'm going to cast Instead, I'm going to cast Bind, then Pain Flare. Oops. Pain Flare. We're going to go to Rune 2. Until Pain Flare's off cooldown. 3 more seconds. Pain Flare again. And for some reason, it did not give me my third stack of Aetherflow 2, which I'm unsure of, so we'll just have to restack. We get that. That on. Go and reset Bio 2. At this point, I would spread it again. Pain Flare. Aether Entombment. At this point, I'm going to switch back to my Rune 3 on a specific target. Use better with Rune 3. Get one more out. I'm going to use Death Flare. And then I would just rinse and repeat. Reset my DOTs, and reset the whole thing and start all over again. So the nice thing about a summoner is that a summoner is not very much different from their AoE and their main single target rotation. Now, the last point about a summoner is a summoner is a very nice class as it has a pretty good learning curve. You can actually start with your pet on auto attack until you have mastered all of your abilities. So when if you're having struggling with keeping your DOTs on, tracking them, watching your abilities, you can put your summon on automatic so that you can actually focus on yourself first. And then as soon as that's done, switch it to obey and work on doing the double controlling both your pet and yourself. Also, a pet really only has 3 abilities you're going to be using, so it's only 3 more abilities on your bar in reality. If you want to do more damage, practice keeping your pet on obey, but if you're just a little worried at first, I would say keep it on manual until you get comfortable. However, I would not consider doing endgame content if you still can't use your pet manually, as that's going to be kind of a necessity to doing real damage with a summoner. So just a quick relapse for summoners. Your main stat is going to be Intelligence, Spell Speed, and you can probably decide at this point in time choose Crit or Determination, whichever one you want to go, along with Accuracy. Second, your main forms of damage are going to be your DOT, your Aetherflow abilities, your pet abilities, and then your main attack right here. And then of course with 60, your Dreadworm stance and Death Flare. You also have the ability to Swift Raise, remember that. The ability to cast a shield on your tank. Your Shadow Flare, which you should keep down in AoE situations as well. And your also have the ability to heal, so don't feel free not to use it should you need it. So at this point we're going to go and take a look at a Scholar. Now luckily a Scholar has the same base class as your Summoner, which means you can actually level up the Summoner and the Scholar together if you have your Black Mage and your Conjurer both at 15. Now for a successful Scholar you need your Black Mage at 26 and your White Mage at 34 with Thaumaturge and Conjurer. That way you have Stone Skin and Swift Cast. Now, as soon as you hit level 30, you're going to get 2 different fairies. You're going to get Eos and Selene. Eos, so let's go ahead and, well, let's start with your ability, with your stats first. Obviously, your Scholar's main stat's going to be Mind. So let's go ahead and reset this again. You're going to put all your bonus into your Mind. This will increase your healing potency, allowing you to heal better. Okay. You're also going to want to probably have your determination up pretty high, but crit is going to be very important for a Scholar. We're going to learn why later. So I would definitely focus on your crit. Spell speed is really not going to be important. You should probably ignore this one, but I would definitely focus on your crit. That's going to be very important on the Scholar. Now, let's go and take a look at the Scholar's abilities. First we have our main Arcanist abilities, which are the exact same as the Summoners, so we're going to ignore that this time. And we're going to move on to our job abilities. The first thing we have for jobs are the fairies. You have Eos, who is really going to be your main healing fairy. She has 4 abilities. The first one is Embrace, which is our normal heal, has a potency of 300. She's going to have a move called Whispering Dawn, which actually casts a regen on all of your opponents. on all your across the region on everybody, has a cure potency of 100 and lasts for 21 seconds, meaning it's a total of 700 potency. It's on a 1-minute cooldown, but it's a great AoE regen that the only one that a Scholar has. Next we have Fey Covenant, which increases the magic defense of yourself and nearby party members by 20%. This is actually very useful in Heaven's Ward, as you have a lot of bosses that are kind of cast magic-based attacks. Next we have Fey Illumination. Now if anyone's ever played a Paladin, this is pretty much Convalescence, the base Convalescence, but for party-wide. So in other words, this increases healing on all healing abilities by 20% on everybody. So very useful for AoE damage coming in. Then you have Selene. Now Selene is going to be more of a weaker healing, but more of a buffing, debuffing type of a class. So Selene also has Embrace, just like Eos does, same potency 300. But she has Silent Dusk, which actually is a silence, so you can actually silent an opponent if you're needed to. I wouldn't count that as your most... I wouldn't really use the Scholar to be the one to silence, mainly as it takes a little more time to command the pet than just to use the ability. Fey Caress is pretty much a Suna. This will be the first type of Suna you have for a Scholar. You won't get your real Suna until about 40, so this is a very useful skill, and definitely get used to it. It only lasts for a minute, but it can remove a single detrimental effect from all nearby members, so it's actually going to remove one from everybody, not just one person. The last one is Fey Wind. This increases the attack speed of yourself and nearby party members by 3% for 30 seconds. Now, I'm pretty sure the attack speed means that it would actually affect both skill speed and spell speed, as it just is attack speed. So what this means in other words is you're doing a full-on 3% party-wide for 30 seconds for everybody. So if you actually take a look at a full party of say 8 people, you're actually increasing your defense, your attack power by 24%. That's if the healers are DPSing. If you're only counting the tanks and the DPS, it's an 18% increase for 30 seconds, and you can have it up every minute, meaning that half the fight you're increasing the DPS of overall by 18%. That's actually a really good increase. So the question is, when do you use each fairy? This is going to be personal choice. This is something that you have to decide on your own. My personal choice is, if I'm going to be focusing on healing, I will be using Selene, because I'm healing. I don't need her to heal as well as much. But if I'm going to be focusing on my DPS, I'll be using Eos for her increased healing abilities. If I have a stronger healer, I can do more damage. So that's kind of where my choice comes into. Am I going to be DPSing more or healing more? The last one will be, how heal heavy is it? If we're in a fight that's extremely heal heavy, I'll probably use Eos and then swap them out if I need to pop a buff. Let's go take a look at our additional skills. Again, like I said, Swift Cast is a necessity. It's going to be level 26 Thaumaturge, but it allows that Swift Raise, which you need to have if you're going to be healing anything past 50. Protect, again, a necessity, increases the defenses, magic and physical defense of all party members. Doesn't tell us just how much, but that is important. And you'll get that from a Conjurer, pretty easy to get. Next we have Stone Skin, which absorbs a total of 10% of the target's maximum HP, lasts 30 minutes, but it's not going to be on that long. The last one is Cleric Stance. This allows you to swap your intelligence and mind attributes, do 10% more damage, but your healing goes down by 20%. This is going to be your DPS spec when you want to do damage. Back to our job abilities. Now, we went over the fairies. These are the other ones you get. The first one is Adult Queen. Now this is why stacking crit is so important on a Scholar. Adult Queen restores target HP, has a potency of 300, but it also erects a magic barrier which will nullify damage equaling the amount of the HP restored. So in other words, it's about a 600 potency. You heal for 300, but then you also have a shield for the same amount you healed for. Now here's the thing, when it crits, then your actual damage nullification is doubled. So say you actually crit for 4,000, you then have a shield for 8,000. So the higher your crit, the more chances you're going to crit, the more chances you're going to create a doubled shield. Now Succor is a raid-wide heal. It only has a potency of 150, but it does the exact same thing of equipping a shield. The only downside of it is that it does not double if you crit. Next we have leeches. This is a level 40 skill. This will be the first Asuna you get. It actually will remove your single detrimental effect from a target. The biggest downside of your Scholar is you don't get that till 40, which means you've got to heal through a lot of damage. Next we have Sacred Soil. This creates a designated area in which party members will take 10% less damage. Now, from 45 to 50, you should feel free to use Aetherflow on this ability, but honestly, after 50, you should not be using Aetherflow on this ability for a single target. So, for example, if your tank has 5 members on it, you really probably shouldn't be using that on your tank. You should be saving it for the next ability, Lustrate, which has a cure potency of 300 and is an instant cure. The reason I say that is because while your tank might take 10% more damage, your tank also has cooldowns that they can use to help reduce their damage. And the amount of time it's going to take for you to put this spell down, if they're taking that much damage, you're wasting time just trying to put this down. Lustrate is more useful because if they're going down, you can instantly heal them back up. Next we have Indomitability. This is kind of like Lustrate, but it's another raid wide. It's a 400 potency, but it's a raid wide. It's very useful. This is your level 52 skill. This also requires a stack of Aetherflow to use. Next we have Broil. Broil will actually be replacing Ruin, as it deals unaspected damage of a potency of 170 compared to the 80 of Ruin. So as soon as you have Broil, you'll be replacing that with Ruin. The last one is Dissipation. Oh, sorry. Next we have Deployment Tactics. This is extremely important if used correctly. It extends Eye for an Eye and the Galvanize effects cast by you to party members nearby the target. In other words, you cast, say, Adel Queen, you get that crit heal, you get that shield for 8k, and then you pass it, everyone in your party has that shield of 8k, plus a stone skin of 10% less damage. It's very necessary in some of the new raids. In fact, in the newest, well, the old raid, Knights of the Round Extreme, what you had to do was you needed your White Mage to cast Stone Skin 2, your Scholar to cast Adel Queen until you crit on a warrior usually, and then cast Deployment Tactics, and that would be enough to hopefully make sure everyone would live. Now with the gear level, it's much easier than that. But that was what we would have to do, and we'd still be at about 15, maybe 20%. Some of your lower classes like healers would be low, and trying to keep someone who died up was near impossible. Possible, but near to impossible. Next we have Emergency Tactics. This transforms the next Galvanized status into an HP recovery equaling the amount of damage reduction intended for the barrier. So in other words, if you really need to have another powerful heal, you use Emergency Tactics and you heal. Now again, this also means that the Adel Queen, should you crit, will then do 3 times the healing, not just double, because it still gains that double potency from the crit. And this also increases this will also increase your support to 300 potency, not 150 anymore. Our last skill is going to be Dissipation. This orders your pet away, grants you a full stack of Aetherflow, and increases your healing magic potency by 20%. It lasts for 30 seconds, and your pet cannot be summoned while you're under the effect of Dissipation. So in other words, this makes you heal for a lot stronger and gives you instant stacks of Aetherflow, but then you're going to have to re-summon your pet, meaning you're probably going to wait till you have Swift cast down, so you can get it up immediately. So this covers the basic skills of your Scholar. So the first thing we're going to look over is a DPS rotation for a Scholar. Now the first thing you're going to always want is Cleric Stance to increase your damage done. As you'll see, my attack magic potency is now at 947. Should I reverse these, you see healing is now 947. So this is why it's important to have Cleric Stance to get that attack magic potency up. Next, one more thing I've done. As a Scholar, I macroed one of my DOTs. The reason I did that macro is so that I don't have to pay attention to my ticks. I can pay more attention to my HP and healing. So what this creates is, I'll show the macro real quick. When I cast Bio 2, at about 28 seconds, it'll tell me to reapply my bios, my DOTs, allowing me to reset everything. So the way I go on this one is, I will go Bio 2, Miasma, Bio, and then I'll be using Broil while watching the hit points. And then when it ticks, which I'll show you, when it ticks in 28 seconds, I will then know to reestablish my DOTs and then go back to bio. What this does, it allows me to have to ignore watching this number and instead focus on what my main priority as a healer is. Also, you should always have your DOTs on your alternate bar. Do not have your attacks on the main bar. There you go, there's the warnings. Let me know I need to reapply my dots, so then I just recast them all. Now, so pretty much the Scholar's DOT is really easy. Damage rotation is really easy. DOTs, Broil, and Shadow Flare. That's it. Just spam Broil until you see you need to heal again, or you need to reapply dots, reapply Shadows Flare, watch HP, go back to spamming Broil. That's it. It's a very easy DPS rotation. You do have Bane to help pass the dots, and we do have Energy Drain to help absorb HP should we need it. So if you die, which happens at times, the first thing you should be doing when you get rezzed is Aetherflow, 3 Energy Drains, boom, you're back up to MP. You're easily going to have about 50% of your 8 MP back. So for example, let's see if I can get rid of my MP. Let's do Succor. We'll do Succor till I run out of MP. So you can see just how it works. In fact, let's go ahead and target. Because as long as I'm not on combat, it's not going to really count anything. Okay, let's just do that. Okay. So now that I'm technically in combat, my MP should slow down. So I'll use all my MP up, so that I have like really little MP. By the way, you should not be spamming Succor like this. That's actually not really good to do, as it costs 1300 MP and will drain your MP really quickly. This should only be used really again to keep the shields up and prevent raid-wide damage. Alright, so this is pretty good. So we'll do one more. So I'm at 0. Aetherflow. Energy Drain. Wait again. Energy Drain. Wait again. Energy Drain. And as you see, I've almost got to half HP in that pretty much less than 15 seconds. I'm back to half of my match points. So Energy Drain is going to be more used on your Scholar than probably on your Summoner. Mainly to keep that back up. Now Succor, again, this is going to be your raid-wide heal. You should be using this if you need to prevent light raid damage, not super heavy, along with your Sacred Soil. Aetherqueen is you're not going to be activating Aetherqueen every second. Realistically, if you're using Aetherqueen, you should be using Physic as your main heal, and then Aetherqueen as just to keep a shield up on your enemy, on your tank. A Scholar is more of a tank heal than an AoE heal. Because of this setup though, you should never let your tank die. Keep your Aetherqueen up, then go back to your heals, and just focus on your heals. And then when you can put the shield back up, put it back up. We're going to take a look at our more important healing skills. So first of all, we have Lustrate, which is like your old crap heal. Your tank's down to 15%. That's when you want to use this heal. And just, if you have to, spam it 3 times, get it back up, then switch back. Lustrate costs no MP, it's an instant cast, and only costs 3 stacks of Aetherflow. So, you should be fine there. It usually works out pretty well. Next, you need to take a look at, the next one is going to be Indomitability. Indomitability is going to be if you just took massive raid AoE damage and you need to heal it. So again, wait the 20 something seconds to get my Aetherflow back up. Scholar is actually a very fun class, a very easy class. Leveling it up, you're going to be more DPS than healing. You can literally put your fairy on auto and go eat a pizza. Your fairy will heal everything. So what that means is when you're in combat, you should really be focusing more on DPS in low dungeons. Once you hit level 15, you have to focus a little harder. That's when you might need to take a little more focus on healing. So this is going to be your Indomitability, which is going to be your raid-wide heal that you're going to want to use in situations that are very difficult. So pretty much that covers the basics of a Scholar. Keep your shields up, focus on Physic, Use Succor if you need to do a light raid damage prevention along with Sacred Soil. Use Indomitability after massive raid damage to heal the entire party. Use Lustrate if your tank is going down. Use Energy Drain if you need MP. Watch your DOTs, etc. It's pretty basic. The last thing I'm going to go over is one thing I do. Now, first of all, I never use my Fairy on Sick usually. I only use it on Sick if I'm in an easy dungeon I want to focus DPS. But usually I'll keep it on Obey. If I have it on Sick, I'm going to usually have Celine out. But if I have my Eos out, it'll always be on Obey. So when I need to focus my heals, I put it on Obey. And what happens is then I can now control the heals. What this does is now it helps me do my second macro. The second macro I have is actually going to be a double setup of heals. So what's the macro I use? I'm going to show you guys that macro right now. My healing macro I use on my fairy, and luckily it works on both fairies. It's going to be /M-Icon Physic /AC Physic wait 1, so 1 second wait, /PAC Embrace. What this allows me to do is it allows me to do my Physic, and then 1 second my pet will do its next. What happens is I then increase my healing potency from 400 to 700, but it still costs the same as my regular Physic. Now this is very useful if you need to do a solo tank, but if you need to do 2 double healings, you can easily change that by just turning your pet on auto and then placing your pet by the secondary tank. At which point, when I heal, you'll notice that it'll tell me that it can't be done with the pet. So that turns off the macro automatically. But when you go back to your solo healing and you need to have the pet following you, you need to have the pet focusing on what you're focused on, then you just put it back on Obey, and then you just cast it again. So as you'll see, there goes my heal, and there goes my pet's heal. Now, one more thing, I better turn it off. One more thing is that this macro requires a specific timing. The timing is somewhat easy once you figure it out, but you're going to watch physically and watch this Embrace. As soon as you see the pet's HP come up, you can cast it again. So that's pretty much the timing. As soon as you see, you know you can start casting it. So that pretty much covers it for a Scholar. Same abilities as an Arcanist, so those have all been covered. Your Swift Res, I have this macro because I want to be able to res things quickly. All my pet abilities are here, so I can use my pet abilities should I need to. If you're on PS4, it's a little more difficult. Remember a couple things to remember. You can use up and down on the D-pad to target your party members. I put this top bar up here so I can track my timers. So instead of having to keep looking, I can just look up here and see how much I have left. This covers both your pets' timers usually, so you're good there. I have a mouse hooked up so that I can better control Sacred Soil, can better control Shadow Flare, control where I put my pets, etc. This is on a mouse over, so I can easily control who I want to put that on. And my res is on a mouse over as well, so I can easily res somebody. So, that about covers it. I hope this guide has at least given you some insight to both of these classes. Again, I don't main these classes, I just play them for fun. If you want to find a more intense guide, you're going to do a lot better finding someone who mains these classes and has the passion that they've made it their main. I actually main tank and Dragoon more. But I hope this helped you guys. I hope this helped anyone who might be struggling with a Scholar. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments below, or you can message me on Tumblr. I'm with the name Siegfried Tulane. Feel free to message me on PSN, Caleb88. All that information will be in the comments below. If you need help on a class and I can't help you, I have a friend who's a main Scholar who I know can help. Just leave the questions, I can always ask him. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys when I do my Dragoon video. Thank you so much.